This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Hi, everybody. I guess we'll call this meeting to order. This is the December 11th, 2025 meeting of the Easthampton Bees Committee. I'm today's only acting chair, Jamie Paquette. Call the meeting to order along with Jenny Goldleaf. I don't remember his name, Hal, Connie, Renee, and a host of people joining us online. So I think our first order of business is public speak. If there's any members of the public here online that would like to speak, feel free to raise your hands and we can call you to the platform.
I have the Girl Scouts on the agenda. If there's anything they would like to say during public speak, feel free, but they are on an agenda item as well.
Great. Okay, seems like we'll hold off on anything there till that part of the agenda. So moving on from public speak, we'll move to the approval of the minutes from the last meeting. I know Hal circulated those in advance.
Yes.
Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Votes.
All right, motion is approved and so
Actually, I take that back. I don't think I can second because I wasn't at the last meeting. I don't think.
Yeah, I was not either.
Oh, second. I read
All right.
I was like, wait a second.
Motion is made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right.
Abstain.
Abstain, yeah. Two of us will abstain for not having been here. Minutes are approved by majority vote of the committee. So thank you, Hal, for doing that. Those can be submitted to the clerk's office.
Yep. We'll take care of that tomorrow or Monday.
Yeah, no worries. All right, coming up next is the Urban Tree Project with the Smith students. Sophie, you want to take us away with that?
Sure. Yeah, the students couldn't make it tonight. It's their finals week, unfortunately for them. But they did give their presentation today. I went to the Smith campus to see the presentation on their findings and their research for the project, and it went incredible. Everyone in the room was like so impressed with just the level of detail and the attention that they put into the project. We have some really solid and useful GIS maps to work with that I think will be really helpful for future grant applications. And Greg has already kind of flagged that to me about looking into DCR, urban forestry grants. The application cycle for that opens up again next fall. So it gives us some time, but we have a really great base to work with now that we have this project sort of as like a technical assistance piece to help with the grant application. So that's exciting. They are finalizing their paper write-up version of the presentation. And when they're done with that, going to send it over to me as well as with some PDF files of all of the maps that they created. And if anyone is interested in actually seeing the presentation, the thing was recorded, and I think that they're planning to send that over to me as well. And I'd be happy to send it out to you guys if you're interested. It's super interesting and really thorough and well done. So it was like very, very proud moment to see that all come together. So that's wrapping up for now. And then we're going to start thinking about next steps and taking it and relating it to actual funding. So very exciting.
Yeah, I would love to see it if you could pass it on.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm not sure when they'll have it ready, maybe after finals, but and one thing I also wanted to flag was that the professor that ran this course will also be running it again in the spring and wanted me to kind of keep my ear out or start brainstorming some potential projects that his next semester class could be working on. So if anyone has anything that they are interested in, feel free to flag it, send it to me, and I'll probably touch base with him again sometime in January or February. So.
Sophie, were there any like high level observations or conclusions that you could share with us from their presentation?
Sure. I'm trying to remember exactly. They had like, it was so detailed, but not in a way that was overwhelming. It was very comprehensive, but they basically overlaid a bunch of maps to identify like a priority planting area within the city that meets kind of the needs of equity and that meets the needs of public shade opportunity for populations that feel the strongest burden of increased temperatures. I think they had originally talked about wanting to add a layer for flooding, and then that just wasn't working within their kind of scope. So they focused on heat and mitigating heat, and they identified this area that is somewhat within the middle of the city. I'm like thinking about where it is on the map, where it's prime for meeting all of those needs of the overlaid maps. One thing that I think is important to mention is that in their GIS analysis, they found that only 4% of the unforested area or the available planting area is publicly owned land. So a good portion of the kind of next steps for the project and for actual funding will be how do we engage residents and educate residents on how to increase planting on their private property, or how do we engage business owners with planting on private property. So in terms of what the city is able to do, I mean, we can make a little bit of a dent in it, but a good part of it is going to be outreach. And they laid out some fantastic recommendations and put together some resources that we can literally just print and hand to people who are interested in learning more about what they can do kind of on their own land. So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
And just make sure I caught it. 4% of the forested area that they identified is what's publicly owned?
Unforested. 4% of the unforested land that they identified was publicly owned.
Okay.
I think the language that they used was like, and I can double check on this too for the specifics, but I think it was like the plantable area, the non-impervious surfaces that are publicly owned that are right now unplanted but able to be planted on. It's a relatively small number, like 4%.
Okay, good. Just that helps me capture this. Thank you.
Which also feels relevant geography for the work of this committee. So
Yeah.
we look forward to getting into those maps.
Absolutely, yeah. Same here.
I know back when this committee first convened in the first few meetings, we talked about looking at some of the places like Springfield that were doing, urban tree programs where they're actually like giving people trees. I know it's a little different, but you're talking about engaging with residents. Is that still something that is that if we continue, has that stayed on our radar, or is that something that we've kind of like let fall by the wayside for the time being?
Is that one of the things you were talking about somewhat recently?
I think the last time that I remember that coming up, I think Elodie was looking into it.
Yeah, that's one of the way I
And then
recall.
I think that was sort of the last we saw of her.
Right.
So I would love to pick that thread back up. I think that would be a really valuable precedent to understand more about.
Yeah, especially given that spread of like 96%, 4%.
Right.
Things are on private property, and we want to engage homeowners and do that. That might be cool.
I think I have access to the contact information to the person that runs that program in Springfield. So
Amazing.
if we could pick your brain and
Yeah, that'd be really good.
Yeah, because that could be an area where there could be funding available too for possibly like grants,
Yes.
whether it's
Yeah.
state or private foundations or things like that might prioritize things like that, getting something up and running. So something to think about. And Sophie, I don't know if you ever come across anything like that in your day to day. If you flag that as something that we might be interested in trying to do.
Totally. And I think that was part of their recommendation packet that they provided, was some kind of partnership with organizations, or it was at least mentioned during like the question portion of their presentation. And I think that the Arbor Day Foundation or something along those lines we've worked with in the past. And so that's a partnership that we have. And now I should also mention, I don't know if this opens any more opportunity for partnership, but Greg received his official tree warden certification last week. So he's a tree warden, and I think that can also kind of help with partnerships and leverage in that area as well. So yeah, definitely we'll keep an eye out.
All right. Anything more on urban trees? Then let's move on to the garden next steps. Welcome to the folks from the Girl Scouts that are here representing, and Sophie, you can take this one away too.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I kind of wanted to just have everyone, touch base again. It's been a little bit since we've kind of come together and been able to chat about the progress. Obviously, we've kind of had some conversations and a site visit where we looked at the area and kind of determined what we think would be best for the project. And I've sort of clued Angela in a little bit to where we are in that process. I think our kind of next conversation is going to be about site prep and what we want to do for site prep in preparation for a spring planting. We had talked about coordinating a chip drop with DPW, which definitely seems like something that they would be able to do. So I think just kind of opening up the conversation to understanding sort of what the Girl Scouts are thinking, what their schedules are looking like, and how a timeline for potentially a prep now and planting in early spring, sort of what that looks like for you guys.
Thank you. So hi, everybody. I'm Angela Park. I am the Girl Scout troop leader. And we have Penny here and Ruthie on the other screen. They are the two girls who are working on their silver project. They did submit a proposal for this project and received approval from the council. So that was another big step. And so their responsibility is to work for 50 hours over the course of their project in order to earn the award requirements. They've also got to do a project that involves the community. So another requirement is that the community has to be involved in the project in some way. So they can't just do the project themselves. They can't just raise money to do the project. They have to engage the community in the project. And so Sophie has done an awesome job in helping connect us with those pieces. And so I think for us, I'm not an expert in pollinator gardens. And so it would be helpful for us to understand the timing of things so that we can plan for the girls to commit whatever time around that time frame is necessary. And then we can put aside, kind of set ahead, certain hours, either during the week or on the weekends, depending on what time of the year it is, for them to do actual work on the garden. The other things that they can do now, between now and obviously they're not going to be planting right now, but I think a big piece that they can work on is whatever we're going to do in terms of a website. So I think that we had talked about this, Sophie, kind of setting up a page that will contain information about the plants that are going to be planted, because it's going to be a demonstration garden. And so we've talked about having QR codes nearby each of the different plant types. Folks could scan the codes, go to the website, learn more about planting those specific plants, what they are, where to plant them, how to plant them. So I think the girls could work on with a partner. They're obviously not website designers, but they could help to research, get information, get it validated by the experts here, and then build that site out. The other piece that they can work on now is coordinating volunteers. And so, Sophie, when we were at the Cultural Chaos, we did collect some signatures of people who would be interested in helping this project in the future. And I think Sophie has that list. And so we do have a start in being able to reach out to the volunteers. So I think that's something we can start communicating once we have a timeline. So if we say we're going to be looking for community involvement in the wood chip drop and spread, we're going to be looking for involvement in rototilling or whatever prep needs to be done before that, planting, and then whatever maintenance over the first and second year. So we want to try to that sort of stuff we can get going now. And then I think just also not only the timing, but purchasing and planting and the design of the space. The girls can be included in that, but they're not going to have the expertise. So we need support for that piece as well, the design. So I think that's everything. Those are my notes.
Sophie, so where does the project stand in terms of planning and implementation from your side and DPW side?
DPW is pretty much giving me relatively free reign as long as it kind of doesn't impact their, day-to-day maintenance of the space, the mowing and anything like that, if we have clear boundaries. I think one of the biggest things when it comes to timeline is that we have this grant from the Keep Massachusetts Beautiful organization, and all of our expenses up to $500 have to be reported by the end of June of 2026. That's not to say that everything has to be planted, but everything has to be at least purchased and submitted so that we can get the reimbursement through that program by that time. So that's kind of the only really hard date that I have. Other than that, Greg seemed to be relatively open to just having me, give him some times that work for us, and then they can schedule the chip drop as needed. So that's kind of what I'm looking at for timeline. I'm also curious to know if now that it's winter and the ground is frozen and if there's snow, if that's going to kind of impact some of the site prep that we had talked about a couple months back.
Yeah, I feel like we might need to, I think it's very doable, but I think we might need to come up with a slightly different strategy that we can get started on in the spring. I think it would be totally feasible to do the planning and purchase the plants in advance of the June deadline. But one thing I'm wondering about is, like, there's a couple different avenues we could take for site prep. And if we want to, keep on the wood chip tarping idea, or just like covering the site completely, I think that would set us up well for a fall planting date, which would actually be like what I usually recommend just for plant establishment and not having to worry about watering so much in the heat of the summer. And I think we could feasibly prepay for plants from nurseries by June. The other option that I can think of that might be logistically a little bit more difficult would be when the ground thaws, scraping it with like a skid steer or something like that. If we had access to that kind of equipment, I think it might be like, I don't know if that's something that DPW could help us out with, or how that would get there on the bike trail. Like, I think that opens up a couple other complications, but that would, because these are relatively small, not super vegetated areas, that would mean that we could do the site prep in like an afternoon and then just be ready to go. So some pros and some cons. But I think either way, I think we can figure it out.
If we prepped for fall planting,
Yeah.
how much does that leave to be done? I mean, you mentioned that'd be some site prep, but like, is there more work that would still need to be done in the lead up to that, to the fall, or would it push most things like into the fall itself?
I think probably what we'd want to do there would be to get a really thick layer of wood chips on the ground as soon as we could after the snow is melted or after the ground is unfrozen, in hopes of killing whatever seed bank is in place. So we'd want to basically leave it on as long as possible, and then plant into it probably relatively late fall. Like, I would say October would be a great time, anytime after Labor Day, really.
Okay, I'm asking one thing because I know
Yeah.
from a Girl Scout perspective, probably like, how much time, or, what can they be doing in the interim time or in that lead up time
Right.
to fulfill their mission, and as well as still help us get, where we want to be.
Right. I mean, the advantage there is that it gives us time to do the planning, like the design plan, and to do all the sourcing.
Mm-hmm.
And then over the summer, I mean, I don't know how their schedule looks, but once we have the plant list, then maybe that's a really good window for doing the research and figuring out, the information that they want to share on the website.
Oh, like once we know what plants we have and that we're going to be putting in.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Even though there wouldn't actually be anything to do for the garden over the summer, really.
Right.
Okay, but then what does that imply in terms of us spending the funds we have available so we can submit for reimbursement? Because that seems to be pretty much a hard and fast deadline. Is there still a way we can do that?
Right. Well, I think Jenny said you could pre-order from, whatever plant, or garden center or whatever you might be working with, and, order those in advance, even though we may not accept delivery until later.
Okay.
That's what I was just going to ask too. Like, will places do that where we can just order and then be like, we're not going to actually take these until
That's pretty standard.
Okay. Okay.
And we're probably going to have to close the transaction so that we have the paper trail to submit to the what Keep Massachusetts Beautiful Fund.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as we have those steps done and we can submit that paperwork, then that sounds like we'd be on the the right path.
That's pretty standard because
Yeah.
folks generally have their inventories in the spring and then you kind of like do all of your purchasing for the year and then
Okay.
as installations come up, kind of go through and pick those up or deliver them.
Sophie says $500.
It's $500 in reimbursement through this grant. We had also collected around $200 from Cultural Chaos that I think Angela is still holding on to. Angela, I spoke with our auditing office about like getting that money in an account. And it seems I'm happy to, take up the topic of conversation again. If you're comfortable holding on to it.
I'm holding it.
Okay.
It's fine. We collect lots of money for Girl Scout cookies, so I'm used to holding random amounts of money. So it's totally fine. We'll hold it and we know exactly how much we raised. So whenever it's needed, I can get it to you.
Fantastic. I appreciate that. It's city finances and accessing it is a whole
Fine.
thing.
No need to overcomplicate.
Mhm.
Is $700 enough to fund what we need at the site? That's not going to be like
I was
donated.
gonna ask that.
Yeah. I mean, without a firm plan right now, I know it's a little bit of conjecture.
Yeah.
Renee, would you let me share my screen? I have a little. map
Yes,
that
how do
might
I
be
do that?
helpful. I
Um,
think
go
you're
to
the
the
host somehow.
People. Go to the people down where
Yeah.
it's 5. And then,
Go to Jenny.
Yeah.
yeah, and then add as co-host.
Perfect.
So
Thank
that's
you.
something to look at. Thank you.
Mhm.
This is like pretty rough. Considering a little
Yep.
bit. But I thought I meant to do this for our last meeting and didn't have a chance to. Can I make this full screen? Maybe not. This is just like in CAD, so this is kind of the sausage making. But I wanted to put together the notes from our site meeting and just kind of put this together a little bit so we could all look at the same thing and make sure I'm understanding what we were. Sorry. Also, this works way better with a mouse, which I don't have. Make sure that I was understanding the like concepts that we were talking about. So we've got the rail trail. This is kind of that little island. I can zoom out. Like this is the broader context of where we are. And then zooming way back in, we were talking about a little strip about 5 feet wide off of the gravel path with a 3-foot wide buffer strip for DPW to mow between the path and the garden area. And then there's kind of these like 2 existing wetland plantings that have a mown path between them. We were talking about kind of planting up this area between the second wetland area and the path. And then something I was not totally clear from my notes, were we talking about another strip on the other side of the path or am I making that up?
I don't think so, but I'm not necessarily closed off to the idea if we have the funds and the time to do it. I just don't want it to like, us to kind of get it over our head and then not have enough money to be able to actually.
Totally. These two areas that we were definitely talking about combined. So, just a little bit here. Are just trying to get the area calculation right now. They are 966 square feet. I know that was one of the questions that we had last time. We could say 1,000 if we want to be generous about, where the exact edges of these things are, and that kind of makes the map easy. My usual rule of thumb is 1 plant per square foot, which works really nicely in a sense with the $500 if we were able to find plants for $2 a plant. If we had access to wholesale purchasing, that would be totally reasonable. I don't know if that's necessarily going to work out. Because that is pretty much exactly the price from like New England wetland plants. Elsewhere, it'll be a little bit more expensive. But it's definitely in the ballpark and we don't have to plant that densely. We could also bring down the size of like the bigger area over here and start with the smaller area. But like, I think it's without having exact numbers for plants and square footage. Like I think that's squarely in the ballpark of what we can do for $500 and certainly $700, I would say. And another question there would be to bring down the cost. That's thinking about plugs. If we were to do part of this as a seed mix, that would be way cheaper.
Right.
Yeah.
So we could choose areas that we want to do plants versus seed mix.
And I would mention too that there's more fundraising opportunity as
Right.
well, say another cultural chaos or,
Mhm.
if in between now and the fall. So there could, if we did think we needed a larger budget, there may be ways to do that. Angela.
I have two questions. One is, if they build out their website, and would it be possible to like link to the New England Wetlands plant place as like a place to get to purchase them? And would they maybe, if we did that, be willing to, reduce the price of the plants, since we would be directing customers to them potentially?
I mean,
I mean, it's something maybe if that's allowed, could we ask?
Yeah, we could definitely talk to them. They're not a retail nursery is the issue. Like they don't usually sell to members of the public, but
Oh.
there's no harm in asking, see if they'd be open to making an exception.
Right. Or maybe they'd be willing to donate some in exchange for, placement on signage or something like that as well. Like, plants donated by.
As a partner in
Yeah.
this,
Right.
Yeah. It's
we've
worth it.
listed them as like a partner in their girls' proposal.
Okay.
Right on. And there's also like Wing and a Prayer in Covington is slightly more expensive, but not much more expensive. And they're great to work with. So that could be another, there's definitely places that we can get plants. Another thing that I'm
Or
thinking about.
other places that may be willing to like be a partner and maybe donate or reduce cost. So
One idea I just had is if we end up doing another winter sowing event, I wonder if we could ask people to like volunteer to grow out plants for this.
That's another good way.
We
Yeah.
have tons of seeds, so that would be pretty minimal in terms of like it would just be the cost of compost.
Mhm. And would that be winter sowing like this current winter
Like
or?
January. I meant to add that to the agenda. So if we have time at the end, I'd love to bring that up again.
Okay. Yeah, because I was going to ask if we were going to do part of it as like seed beds, like when would, the ideal time for that is probably different than like small plants that plugs, as you said.
Yeah, I mean, that I think fall would also be perfectly fine for that. That is also heavily reliant on good site prep.
Okay.
So we would want to make sure that we've like really done a good job there. Just because they will be more successful in establishing if the site is ready for it.
Right.
But yeah, fall would be totally fine for that. And that's a fun like group volunteer activity too.
Mm-hmm. But I do like the idea of maybe having people volunteer to grow starts and then like collecting those at the right time. I think that's a good community building.
Yeah, I was gonna say, especially if they're trying to tie in a good like community involvement piece into the project, that's probably another fantastic way to get people involved.
Right. And from the Girl Scout standpoint, potentially something that they could be doing like more actively, like, actually growing plants and like growing stuff in, advance, like to get stuff ready for it. That might be a good way to fill some of that time between now and, 10 months from now or whatever.
That's such a fun idea. We have tons of seeds. So we can
way more than I would.
Yes.
Yeah.
No problem there.
Have a ton of seeds too, I think, so.
Yeah.
Constantly working on that.
Awesome. I did have one question. Is there a time, is there a date that the Girl Scouts need to have this completed by?
Yes, that's a great question. I just literally texted Sophie. So Penny is an 8th grader. She has to complete her portion of the project and her 50 hours by September 30th. Ruthie is in 7th grade. And so Ruthie has an extra year. I think, it sounds like we need to kind of establish some, one of the requirements of the project is establishing sustainability. And so I have to double check that it's okay that they finish at different times because they're in different grades. I think it's okay. Either way, we can commit some portion. I mean, I don't know how much commitment the girls would need to do for the planting specifically that one piece. But we can work it out somehow to be there for that. But then we do want to establish a sustainability plan as well. So beyond their time on the project. So September 30th for Penny, next year, September 30th for Ruthie.
Okay. Yeah, so maybe all the more reason to kind of plan something in the near term for like the community, as you mentioned. Yeah, that sounds like
And we could work out something around Winterfest, winter markets, whatever, if we want to be public. I have to check on this. The girls also do a ton of cookie booths starting in January all the way through March. And so they engage with the local community every single weekend. And so there may be ways, I think, that they're allowed to do that while they're, like just signing up volunteers or people who can request to get more information about their project. So I will let you know. We've done it before with a different project, so I think we can. I'll confirm. So there's different ways, and the girls are out and about all the time too.
okay. So just to kind of pull everything together here, in terms of like between say now and like a next meeting, what are things that would need to be done or accomplished or outreach done? We made those things clear, sort of. I mean, we can continue. We can talk some more in a minute about planning some upcoming events. But if we're kind of going to go forward with say the fall plan, it doesn't require a vote necessarily, but then yeah, sort of what's the cadence of like what exactly what needs to get done and incorporating our volunteer groups or those sorts of things. Is there outreach to any of the places we might acquire plants, planning an event, maybe planning more fundraising if we think we need it, to get all the plants that we're going to need when it comes time, or maybe we're not going to because we have plenty with $700 and people growing stuff from seed for us, and that's going to be more than enough to fill 1,000 square feet of space out there.
I mean, we could try that as a starting point, and then if it seems like we need to augment, or if there's stuff that, like, if we want to do shrubs, like that's probably something that we'll have to buy in.
Right.
But I think the window for, like, I would probably want to have orders placed like March, April, May.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that would give us a pretty okay window to see, like, are we able to grow stuff? How's that looking?
Right.
And have a chance to figure out, like, are the things that we're growing what we actually want to have in this area. But yeah, I think there's the question of like, how much design are we doing versus like, here's what we have, let's put it in and see what happens.
Right.
Which I think are both totally valid avenues. Just a question of like, who's doing that and how's that coming together and
right.
whatever.
So is that a realistic goal to work towards, or say the next meeting or the next two meetings to kind of sketch out what the order of events would be and timing for purchases and
yeah, so I want to kind of shape that now a little bit. So
right, and that way, if we start committing things on paper, and I'm not saying anybody is making commitment, but we at least then have a common understanding of what people are thinking, and then it can be modified as need be.
Mm-hmm. And sorry, do we have like an established like plant list that we're working from, or we're still kind of loose?
I know we had a list that we included with the application. The only thing on my mind is, having actually been to the site and checked it out, I'm wondering if the plants that, like, the actual locations that we've chosen are a little bit different than that list, which was planned for like a genuine riparian planting.
Okay.
And I actually think this is relatively dry because it's on a slope.
Right.
So that we have a list, but it might not be the right list.
Okay. Yeah. Yep, there we go.
There we go.
There you go. Okay, so I guess one thing would be to try to firm up the list, number one, and number two, look at what would need to be acquired versus what could be planted, by us volunteers, what have you, and then transplanted. Yeah. Is that something you have the bandwidth and capacity to start sketching out?
I think
detail?
so. And maybe Sophie and I could like have a maybe we can sit down at some point and get this a little bit more laid out based on what we had in the grant. Cause I think that was a really good roadmap, but now we can just get a little bit more specific. I will say, I think not doing a wetland planting is actually makes this much more flexible, that it's a much wider range of stuff that'll be totally fine there. So like we can get really specific and, you know, make choices based on supporting pollinators or whatever. But I also think generally speaking, plants that are native to this area are probably going to do okay in this spot. Like it's not a very extreme condition. So probably it's okay.
And thankfully, that means a lot of the plants that will do well in this area also happen to benefit pollinators and local ecology. So
Exactly.
perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know that we need to do, you know, so much of it, like, let's actually design everything. It's just like maybe, you know, it's sort of a loose sketch of like, what's going where and based on the things that we have. And that sounds like maybe, again,
I think that would be a substantial step in the right direction.
yeah. Angela, you mentioned being in touch with that, I don't know if it was an actual nursery or another group that would provide plants potentially. Or that,
No, I haven't been in touch with them. I just was thinking of, I did add whatever the nursery is that we got the milkweed from as like a partner, because I figured they would be the group that we would likely go through to get the plants that we purchased. So I just listed them as a partner, and we purchased milkweed from them for the cultural chaos.
Okay. Are you able to provide, so does anyone on the committee have contact info for that, or will we need to get that, or are you comfortable reaching out to them? Just, yeah, when we're talking about maybe they'd be willing to donate, maybe they'd be willing to be added to some signage or something like that. Like, is that something you're comfortable going to them with, or do you want somebody from the committee to do some outreach with them?
The girls can do that outreach.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, if you could do that.
Things that they can do.
Yeah, do a quick like brainstorm or see what they're open to. And then we can come back and we can discuss further, you know, what they said and like what our options are and what we might be comfortable with out of that. But that would be really helpful if you could do that.
Yep, we can do that.
Sophie, with the chip drop, you talked about what's the time frame for that? I guess if that's the way we're going to go in terms of site prep, if that can be scheduled at any time, I imagine, more or less.
That's the impression that I had. I would just have to loop back around to Greg and confirm that that's still the case, even with the snow. I know that things kind of, especially in the highway department, get sort of all oriented towards snow removal and ice and things like that. So I can follow back up with him and see if that's still kind of a whenever thing, or if we need to hold off on that or reevaluate. I will find out either way. So.
Okay. What would be the ideal time to do that? I mean, snow.
Snow, probably, though I am entertaining the thought of like, I wonder what would happen if you just did put it on the snow, because presumably it would stay put.
Right.
I don't have experience with that personally, but yeah, I would imagine that like early spring would be totally fine for that.
Okay.
Like February, March, maybe.
Cool. Okay, so then in terms of any other moving parts right now, I mean, that seems like we were going to the need side, like what are we going to need there? The supply side, like where can we get it from, and who might supply it, and then, you know, the public interaction side, the volunteer engagement side. Seems like all those are in harmony for the moment.
Yep.
Is there anything other part of it that we're forgetting? The website development piece of it would probably come later. I imagine, like getting that set up. Is that, Sophie, would that be going on the city website, or is it going to be like part of like a bees committee?
It can go on the city webpage. Like I can easily add a webpage to our sustainability section. I'm not sure what Angela and the Girl Scouts had envisioned for the website, if they want it to be affiliated with the city or their own kind of thing. I know Bees has been working on a new website as well.
No, I think it should be linked to the city's page. We don't have any like websites or anything like that. So we can, yeah, but Penny said she's done some website design, so she may be able to help like even with that piece. And
Right.
then, like I said, if we can know the plants, if you guys can create a list of even if it's more than what we're thinking, the girls can start doing research on what to include about the plants, and like if you could tell us what's important for gardeners to know about planting, like when to plant, how to maintain it, shade, sun, all that stuff. I'm not a gardener. I'm pretty much terrible at it, but you guys know. And so what those like the most important information, and they can start compiling that information so that it's ready when the plants are here. So even if it's a larger list than what we actually end up with, as long as it's comprehensive and they can do that, that would be great.
That'd be fantastic.
Yep.
Wonderful. Well, yeah, so we'll let you know, I guess, when the next meeting is, and maybe if you all can, plan to drop by again for that, and like we'll give an update on that, and we'll just we'll keep things moving along with a few things now. But we all get to.
Yeah, very excited about this.
Yeah, it's great. Oh, the one thing I was going to mention is if it does go on the city website, I think then there may be an extra consideration about specific promotion of businesses in the city capacity. So we might be a little bit mindful, but I mean, we can certainly acknowledge donations and any contributions that groups or companies make towards the effort. So
that sounds great. Yep, like we could list sponsors or something, or contributors, something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the type of thing we can go out to, people that want to volunteer, like the list we've gathered, or if we do need to do a small other, coordinated fundraising campaign, right? We can offer sponsorship acknowledgement for people that contribute, or companies and businesses that contribute, or whatever, on things there. I think that would be nice.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Great. Well, Angela and Penny and Ruthie, thank you all for coming and giving us an update. Thank you for being interested in working with us on this and being community driven. Really appreciate that. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. We wouldn't be able to do it without you guys. So thank you guys for all your expertise. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Great. You're welcome to hang around, but I think we'll move to the next.
I think we'll drop. Thanks very much.
No worries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Exciting. Yeah. So the Mayor's Monarch Pledge annual report approved.
It's super quick. I submitted it. It was approved. We're good. I'm gonna reach out at some point soon to Salem to see if he wants to sign on for the next round of pledges. One thing I will say is in the pledge report, they were asking like the size of our garden and what we planted there, because I had pledged to develop a garden, and then in the report said we're working on it, and they didn't seem to have an issue with it because they approved it. So hopefully for next year's report, we'll be able to report on an actual established or somewhat established garden by this time next year. So
Okay.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
Nice.
absolutely.
All right. So moving on to the next thing, which is community event related. First off, it's not specifically on the menu or the menu the agenda. There's a lot of practice here. The recurring community meeting and invasive removal continues with this Saturday, and it does sound like we'll have at least some representative from the committee there for any members of the public.
I think Sean indicated he would be there.
I can be there too.
Okay. Yeah, I may be able to pop by for a little bit as well. I haven't made any of them so far. So, and then, but even with the snow on the ground, is there still a plan to get out and do some actual removal, or is it going to be?
There wasn't a plan for this time. It was gonna, now that we're in potential snowy times, we had thought we'd still do the coffee meetup just to try to keep momentum going of the every second Saturday there's an event.
Yep.
But then kind of assess, if we wanted to like a walkthrough of where we've removed things, like we've talked about like a potential, hot cocoa event of just, walking through and taking a look at on the path where invasives have been removed, but there hasn't been a specific plan on like what we're going to do in the winter. It's more, let's get to the coffee and then
Yeah.
Figure out like, if nobody from the community comes, then, we'll decide what to do. And again, there might be sometimes we meet up and it's not terrible outside, and then there's sometimes where it's icy and it just doesn't make sense to wander around.
Yeah.
So did you remember anything different? That's what I thought. We were just gonna kind of like keep up with the coffee and see how it goes through the winter.
Nice.
It's for the public. The coffee starts at.
Nice.
My calendar's here.
I know, I have it in mine
My
too.
calendar,
10?
I've been doing 9 for coffee and 10 for.
I have 9 for coffee on my calendar.
So I thought.
Yeah, yep.
Marigold.
Marigold, yeah.
Right. Good. And then, at least, the very least, if people do get out or take a walk, like the bike path has been cleared, I think. from
That's
what I
good.
understand.
Yeah,
So
good.
it is passable without too
Awesome.
much icy trouble. But then continuing, I can't believe this thing. There is a way to turn it on. Yeah. There we go. All right. All right. So the other part of this, and what was actually on the agenda, is the March energy event. Sophie's been working on an event that's going to be at the library annex, right? That's going to have an energy focus. With part of our Community First partnership, and some other things that we're doing on the energy side that are focused on, energy reduction, electrification, those things. But Sophie, why don't you're more on this than I am.
Yeah, we're in sort of the very early stages of planning it, but it's a very small lift on our part. We basically want to get a couple of community members together who have, in their own personal experience, been involved with electric vehicles, heat pumps, solar PV, just to be kind of available to speak and answer questions and kind of give more of an honest resident and customer perspective of what these technologies look like and what the switches look like for them, sort of without the presence of like a home performance contractor or someone that might be, trying to sell you something. So it's going to be a pretty casual event. It's on March 7th, I think from 11 to 2. And Jamie had brought up the idea of maybe making it a collaborative event. If Bees wants to have some kind of presence there, we're going to have the space for a few hours. It's going to be a very kind of casual, people can drop in whenever. And so if you guys want to have a presence there, you're absolutely welcome. I think we're probably going to start publicizing it sort of maybe come New Year. And we're still kind of trying to identify the representatives that will be available to speak. I believe that Jamie will be one of them. So there will be a Bees presence, I guess, already. But if anyone else has any,
one of the least accomplished on this side of things, I would not trust myself to talk too much about seeds or natives or actually doing any planting. So I would certainly welcome the augmentation of anybody else that would like to be there. That would, or if there's something that we would like to do for this committee, as a public-facing workshop, spring planting. Natives, pollinators, all the things that we cover on the regular, or seeds and stuff as well. So there'd be a good opportunity to, piggyback on another event that's already going to be bringing interested people out that probably, have interest all the way across the board. Hey, I'm interested in solar. Hey, I'd love to do a pollinator garden or get an EV or whatever. And maybe I can't do all those things at once, but at the same time, so. We don't have to make a firm commitment now. Like I said, I can be there and certainly provide some guidance to people. But if we wanted to do something bigger, open the floor to any thoughts or discussion, or we can just plant that seed now for future discussion.
Does it work?
Yeah.
Good idea. Yeah.
On March 7th, okay.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it would be worth having, a table, and it could even just be like here's what a winter sowing thing looks like. Even more just like a presentation of like have some seed packets that people can grab, and more of just like we exist.
Right.
And here's what things we're working on kind of thing, more of like a meet and greet. And then if there's anything else we want to add, then
Sorry to interrupt you.
No.
There's definitely some things that I can think of that would be appropriate to seed at that time that don't require winter stratification.
Okay, yeah.
A lot of them are grasses, which are maybe less charismatic, but
So we could make them
Are
charismatic
great.
because there's a lot of grasses that
Yeah.
also are hosts for local butterfly and moth species. So it might be an interesting way of like, hey, grasses aren't usually very exciting,
Right.
but look at what you can bring into your yard kind of thing. So
And we've left the Girl Scouts gone already. When is Girl Scout cookie season? Is it
February.
February? Oh, so it's so close. So I
Yeah,
wonder if
yeah.
it pushes into March 7th. Maybe they want to be there, and that could help bring more people into
Pretty sure it's
into the fold. There.
Yeah. And make the community aware of what they're trying to do with the gardens.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, Sophie, maybe in your next interaction with Angela, maybe mention that date and see if they might want to be there in some capacity as well, even if it's not cookie sales.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great idea.
Or buy some cookies in advance. And then have them there to get out
That's how
to
we could
people.
expend some of the funds.
Circular,
Sounds great.
circular budgetary work.
That's great.
Girl Scouts raise it, give it to us, we give it back to the Girl Scouts to buy cookies.
I mean, the
It says January to April, but I usually remember it's like.
Yeah, that's why I remember it being like kind of cold outside. Usually I see
Yeah,
them outside, I'm
all
like,
bundled.
ooh.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
But again, we've got the annex, so maybe they could even be inside a little bit and have just an extra. So I mean, not to. Oh my God, it's got to be. One event's got to be everything, but the more you have going on, the easier it is to draw, a decent number of people in. and have a big impact.
Yeah. And the annex is such a nice big space.
Sorry, pre-orders are January, in-person starts.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah, the real intel.
So we're there.
The real intel.
Get your pre-orders.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Right. But everybody get through their holiday eating binge and then like,
That's important.
yeah.
Yes. They still sell.
Yes, they do.
All right, yeah.
And men's tag-alongs.
Yeah. So the other thing I would think, to me, it's always nice when there can be that, as Sophie's saying, that consultative thing as well. So, if there's a sewing thing that can be great, or people just, again, showing up with like, bring a picture of your yard or something, or bring a picture of a plant you're not sure about or something. I don't know. Or, help somebody can, help guide you towards like what you can do with a certain amount of space or those sorts of things. I think would be great, because that's always the question people have. Like, I'd love to do this, I just don't know where to start. I just don't know what's my easy lift, what's my first step.
And I feel like people are so often thinking about that in early spring,
Yeah.
about how to get my
Yes.
garden started. So I
Yeah.
wonder if a lot of people are going to be coming in with like lawn conversion type questions,
Yeah.
or if that's something that we could be prepared to
Mm-hmm.
speak on or something.
It might be worth, if it's an energy event, I'm thinking even, something like a little information about how native plants, you can conserve water, because once they're established, you don't have to be out there watering them, and they're, taking care of, if it's a super wet season, they're taking care of that excess water on your property, and, kind of like
Less mowing.
like thinking along the energy lines and the usage lines of tying those kinds of facts in about native plants and those kind of benefits might be something interesting too, to put out there
Right.
along those lines of, kill your lawn, but also there's so many reasons why,
Yeah.
ecological factors and,
Well, it's making me think too, Sophie, since the whole genesis of this was to have, people who've done stuff talk about what they've done. You've had that garden tour, it was done. And, I know, like, for instance, like Josh Rosenblatt, who converted his yard to a garden. He's no longer on the energy committee, but like, he might be a person be willing to come out and like serve in that capacity, right? Like, hey, I did this at my house. I'll talk to you about what you could do. Like, so have people there that are willing to talk to their experience directly doing that stuff as well. Like, so that could be a neat way to get at some of that too.
Yeah.
Like the real direct action kind of thing.
Because I have a friend that just converted, I convinced her to convert just a strip of her property. And she was like, look at them. They just grew. I didn't have to water them. I didn't have to do anything. They're just there and they're beautiful. I'm like, yeah, they're native plants. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing. So it might be another, just like wheels are turning of like the energy and ecological kind of benefit tie-in of some of those facts about native plants.
Okay. All right, so I think we'll keep this on the agenda for next time too, to talk through it. And Sophie, you can give us an update then on where, any further progress or differences or what's going on. But I think, the date and time or location are all set. Great. And then potentially, start recruiting a few people for this side from the committee and elsewhere. Pardon me. Yeah, I meant to go get a bit of water. So take a quick pause while I do that. Okay.
I'd be one of those things where I can create a folder on the Google Drive just as I'm thinking of see an interesting about water conservation and throw it into the Google Drive and something then we can kind of put together or something.
See before and after.
Yeah, yeah.
Sounds great.
All right. So we'll move on to the next bit, which is the discussion time. Discussion time for updating of the bees ordinance. I guess from the last minutes, Sean has shared initial draft language. Supported by other members that were there, but topic was tabled until now. Sean not able to make it today. Is there a time frame when this needs to be accomplished, or this is just sort of something we'd like to do because we want to incorporate some new ideas, new language,
I don't know if Sean said anything about a timeline. It's more of just let's start the conversation.
Okay.
Yeah,
My understanding at least.
yeah, I don't think there's a timeline, but once it's passed, because it's a charter, I think it has to be changed at the state level, right? So that's gonna take time.
Okay.
Right? So because it's a charter change, and so that has to go to the state legislature to
Okay. Got it. And was it that's around the ordinance that established the committee and the purpose of what we're doing, right? So was it the intention to change maybe sort of the makeup of who's required to be on the committee, or just sort of decouple it from some of the other committees? Is that maybe where that was going?
That's the gist of it.
Okay.
I have your comment though. I guess I just have to ask a question. Why does this require legislative involvement?
because I think it's a part of the charter.
Okay.
So because it's a committee that was created and put into the charter, if there's an amendment to the charter, it has to be approved by the legislature.
Okay, I guess that's where my understanding is following down. So I've got some homework.
I mean, it will be approved by city council, it'll be approved by the mayor, and then it also has to be approved by the.
Sure. Okay. Interesting. Yep.
Okay.
I'm learning things.
Yeah.
Slowly.
All right. Well, without Sean here, and I haven't seen the language there, and I don't think there's any need to go too deep into this right now. It's not an existential pressing matter, given the other stuff, but maybe next time when Sean can return, we can have a more thorough discussion of what it is and where I'd like to see that. And
That would be good.
think about a time frame for that.
Maybe this is a good opportunity for those of us who haven't read the language to make sure to do that by the next meeting.
Yeah, but sure.
Be prepared to have that.
It's a very quick read.
Okay.
I mean, 30 seconds, is plenty of time.
Okay.
So-
I feel like that's what I've given it and I need to give it a little more.
Sure. Yeah.
I've done the quick scan and I know why Sean.
fine.
Yeah, I know why Sean wants to have it changed to try to, get more people involved that
Right, to open up more slots for
Yeah,
interested people and not have it be people who are already serving in some other capacity.
Yeah, and I think that's, the big thing. So it's not, turnover doesn't end up, being an unpleasant specter for
Right.
somebody who's serving on another commission,
Right.
such as you are, or somebody else on the Conservation Commission.
And
Yeah,
everybody has, it's like everybody has such time commitments already
Right.
that it's hard to,
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it'll just be easier to get folks if we can,
right. At the same time, I do understand, I think, the initial thought process was, it's good to get these committees like talking to each other a little bit more.
Absolutely,
And
yes.
understand like this work kind of sits at the center of all these other pieces. And so, the best way to integrate those and keep them at, moving in the same direction, et cetera. So I do understand that. And I think there's value in that too. So, but it could even just be a simple matter of like the committee gets a little bit bigger and like there's more spots for the general public, or maybe, it's not a requirement that they be from these committees, but maybe we, I don't know. We'll read the language and follow up on next time. I mean, we're working out in real time. So having said that, Sean will come back for the next meeting and we can discuss further.
So I misspoke. So
Okay.
it's because it is an ordinance, it doesn't have to, but it is a part of the charter, so.
Okay, and the ordinance committee of the city council.
Okay,
Yeah. So it would come to ordinance, but because it was part of the charter, I thought it had to.
And charter seems to be the magic word here. I guess that's where I'm not getting my fingernails into this.
It's because I'll have to look it up, so I have to,
Okay.
it's hard being on your phone.
Yeah.
Okay, well, and it's not something we need to.
Yeah.
It is it's created by ordinance, but where it also sits in the charter, I think, 'cause I feel like I saw it there. But it doesn't, because it's created by ordinance, it doesn't have to.
Right.
Change it.
All right. Well, if you have, a few minutes between now and the next meeting to dig into that and like, we can get that settled for the future discussion. All right, into an advocacy piece, which is a letter of support for Massachusetts House 1041, Senate 587 to phase out crop seeds coated with neonics. Pollinator Protection Act. So how?
Yeah.
Looks like you-
Well, where we left this from our last meeting, I drafted a couple of letters. As an individual, I sent letters, over my own signature and stuff, and also to the joint committee that was considering this. The questions that we had to wrestle with is if we wanted to send something as a committee, they're simple questions, but that led to more checking. How would we, who should sign it? Chairman of whatever. But then questions about how would we appropriately send this as a city body to others, and just so it doesn't come across that we're just a bunch of individuals winging it and saying that we're here. So it was kind of how-to questions that came up.
Right, that's what I'm seeing from the last minutes that, there was a motion to approve the language and seconded and passed.
Yeah.
So that's not the issue, it's more just.
Right.
Did the mayor's office need to be notified, or would they, would the mayor want to send something that like with our support? Or-
Yeah. And if they want to say, do it, well, okay, so how would we send it where it's not just coming from my personal email?
Right.
That would seem to be, a tripping point.
Right.
So these are little things that, which we could stub our toe on, but it's probably good to figure this out before we, go do something which gets somebody, upset.
Yeah, so Sophie, do you have any further insight into how we might go about that?
From a city perspective, I tend to sort of send things to the mayor's office and then see sort of what their take on it is. I think that Salem would be open, or Mayor Derby would be open to signing something like that, or being involved a little bit more in the process. But if you guys would prefer, if it came from myself from a sustainability perspective, I'm happy to take a look at it as well, and yeah, potentially get involved that way.
Could be a nice, easy solution.
I mean, I don't have any. I would probably have to, run it by someone in order to get the approval to speak on behalf and sign it. But I'm definitely happy to look into that and explore that opportunity as well.
Since the hearing, has there been any further motion on the bill itself, or is
Not that I have
action?
picked up on, there was the hearing and, the date's escaping me. It was in October, I think. Yeah. And the committee on their website said, if you're going to submit written testimony, we'd like it within 2 weeks after. Okay. So that's come and gone, and again, I send my individual letter in.
Right.
So that's probably, not what's important here, although, we should, ought to keep tabs on it. But then, we do want to, encourage Senator Vilas and, thank you. Yes. And you weren't here, but I did get an email from Senator Vilas's chief of staff thanking me for contacting him. He's on deployment in the southern border because he's in the National Guard. So, it didn't sound like, anything was going to happen through his office anytime soon. But I think what I should do is, probably go to the committee's website and see if there are any hints of further action that could guide us in terms of urgency.
Right.
But for now, there are not any hints.
Does it have to go through email? Like, could we send just a print copy with that? Obviate some of this?
No, it wouldn't, because if we were going to send a print copy, we would presumably want to use city letterhead. And I think that raises the same set of questions.
Yeah. Well,
so I mean, the direct hearings reviews, we could certainly say.
Since we didn't use city letterhead, like, I'm just wondering, like, in the interest of getting this under before they stop considering it, which I don't know if there's an end date. I'm just trying to think if there's ways to simplify the quandary that we're in.
Yeah.
Well, if they're asking for letters within 2 weeks of that hearing, right afterwards, but we don't know if it doesn't sound like a vote has been taken on it or anything like that, or it hasn't risen to that level yet. It may just be stuck in, legislative limbo for the time being, or.
And my understanding is that a lot of that happens with a lot of legislation.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I think that's famous for that. So, I don't know that maybe we want to wait and see if there's going to be until there is some sort of future action on it, since that initial time frame for sending something has passed, and if it does reopen, then we can go to the mayor's office or what have you to actually do that versus doing it now.
And I think it would still be a positive step for the committee to weigh in with the appropriate blessing with our legislators.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So you'd rather do that now, regardless of whether there's been any shift in.
Well, again, without knowing if there's any motion, that's certainly. Let's say there's no hint of any motion.
Right.
The urgency is off. Yep.
Right.
But it would still be a good thing ultimately to weigh in.
Okay.
I'll do some snooping and see if I can learn anything about what the status of the bill is.
That would be great. And then it's a matter of whether, Sophie, do you want to float something by the mayor's office to see if they'd be receptive to sending something from the city with our blessing, or they're just letting us send it with their blessing one way or the other?
I would be happy to do that. You said the draft language was approved. Is that somewhere back in the minutes that I can refer to and kind of send that over to them to give them a good idea about what it's going to look like?
I didn't include it in the minutes, but I can get it to you very, very easily through the wonders of email. So I'll do that.
That would be great. Thank you. Yeah. And I'm happy to pass it along to them too.
Would you like to include it as an addendum to these minutes as well, with today's meeting, just since it's been approved and we're talking about?
If that would be helpful, I certainly
I
will.
think from a public review standpoint, if anybody would like to see it, they could review the minutes and like
Okay,
review.
yeah,
the language.
so I'll include that in the draft minutes of this meeting, but just to, Sophie, just to be a little more quick and direct, I'll send you what I've got directly.
Yeah, I think that'd be good, because then there's always, if a member of the public sees something, hears something, is like, oh, I'd like to do that, they can certainly borrow the language and.
Oh,
use
sure.
that
Yeah.
To send their own letter too. So
Yes, and I didn't, draft a letter, completely out of whole cloth. I was, copying other stuff that I found.
Sure.
Imitation is sincere,
No, that's
the most sincere form of flattery.
That's the whole basis of AI, right? Take existing words
I know,
and
yeah.
create something.
So, okay.
Yeah.
So we'll
Not saying I like it.
we'll nudge this forward,
Yeah.
All right,
good. But thank you all for putting that
Sure.
together and for reviewing and considering it. And thanks, Sophie, for that. We'll look for the next piece next time around. And then, hopefully it will move through the state house and actually get somewhere. Didn't work.
Usually it works.
All right, so the next thing on the agenda is points to be read for the city council. I'm afraid that I don't understand.
I can actually speak to that. So, on the city council agenda, there's communication from city committees
Right.
and things like that. So, we meeting city council, that's just never really kind of done outreach to various committees and things like that to like,
Right.
hey, let's use this as an opportunity
Invite
to
you
like
in,
share what's going on. And so I think we're trying to be more intentional about that. And certainly the next, there'll be rollover or turnover
Right.
in January, right? And I think there's just gonna be more of a push to have more involvement from city committees to come in and be like, hey, heads up, these are the things we have going on, because like, I'll just speak for myself. Like sometimes people are like, what's happening with the blah, blah committee? And I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. I'm just trying to focus on the
Right.
6 things that I've got going on as well as everything else. Right. So, and so it's really just an opportunity. So the things that you have going on, like with the Girl Scouts or this letter or,
Right.
whatever, I think it's going to be really important to kind of come in and say, hey, like, these are the things that we have going on. We'd love your support, or we're writing this letter. It'd be really helpful if you all wrote a letter or, whatever. And so I think those are the things that, there's just some more opportunity to have more, communication with city council and things like that. And it's one thing for me to go and say, there's this thing on Saturday and blah, 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 but as just to be able to kind of stand before the council and thus the community, right, the city, to be able to talk about the things that you have going on. It could be a great recruitment tool, because the people are like, oh, hey, that's really cool what the Bees Committee's doing, and right, and then you might have more engagement as well of just kind of what's going on. And that's this. It's like all of the various
Right. Is that going to be done like on a specific cadence? We're going to like, invite specific committees to certain meetings to do that?
Yeah, we can figure out what that could look like. But at the same time, it doesn't preclude you from like, oh, we have this big event coming up. You want to come and say, and do that.
Yeah.
And we would just make sure that you're on the agenda and we know that that's happening.
Okay. Yeah, we need to do that on the energy side too, and I have not done it.
Yeah.
So,
No, yeah.
and I know I did get outreach from at least one of the current city councilors, but one of the relatively newer ones on the energy side, asking a question about something specifically and like wanted to be able to deliver information to constituents and all that stuff. I appreciated that outreach, but it does mean, we can be a little more proactive about putting stuff in front of the council and having that be a two-way communicative street as well, because there may be things that council members are interested in trying or doing or seeing in their districts or citywide, whether it's, pollinator related or, diversity, ecological diversity or energy related stuff. And so, I know on the energy committee, we're at a point now, we're kind of looking for some new ideas and like projects and undertakings, to do. because we kind of came to the end of a bunch of stuff. So, yeah.
Or if there's a report like, boom, we want this out there, like, the housing partnership put together a report and came and gave a presentation and,
Yeah.
right, and then it became a thing that council took on and is now working on, right, within the ordinance committee, right? So I think there's things there to
Yeah.
be able to do those things.
Okay. Well, yeah, if there, without an obvious like chair of this committee right now, it's not obvious like who would be the right person to go and report on that, but certainly we can figure it out.
Yeah, whoever, I think whoever is gonna be the point person to go in. It doesn't have to be the chair, right? It
Sure.
should just be someone from the committee.
Yeah.
Cause you all are obviously busy and, right, so.
I can't even keep track of what the city council meetings are, sadly. What is the next one?
Then the next one is, we didn't have one this week. It would be, next week. So it's the first and third, Wednesdays.
Wednesdays, okay.
Mhm.
So, let's see, Thursday, so that's the 7th.
So next Wednesday,
Okay.
the 17th, yeah.
Yeah, and that'll be the last one for December, and then
Yeah.
nothing until
Mhm.
January.
Yeah, and I have an ordinance meeting on the 18th, so I was like, yeah.
January 7th, so maybe even like, targeting, we have to figure out when this next meeting is gonna be for this group.
Yeah.
Too,
Right.
which is the next thing, and as we've got to,
Yes.
say, I guess so then, the 17th, and then the next one would be, I think, January 7th is the first Wednesday. The second is a Friday, first is a Monday.
January 7th is the first Wednesday.
Right, there you
And
go.
the 21st.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so we could look at one of those two potentially, maybe after the next
Mhm.
East Committee meeting, maybe the 21st is the right time. We can like talk about who gets the short straw.
Yeah, and I think a really important thing to look at too is, are there public hearings on a particular night that you
Okay.
want to speak? Because if it's an hour and a half public meeting,
Right,
public hearing, you don't want to sit there for an hour and a half waiting to get up and like give a presentation, right?
This is a very
So
good.
just
Well,
kind of like,
that stuff happens at the end of the meeting usually, like committee report.
no, it would happen right after if there's a public hearing, you would have it right after, right? So you just kind of have to, sometimes there's public hearings as like, it's super easy, it's just an
Right,
approval of
And
whatever.
there's something else with like.
But
Yeah.
the Conservation Commission, there are hearings that can be very involved.
Yes.
So contentious development things.
We had a short-term rental thing that was like an hour,
Yeah.
something, right? So you just want to avoid,
Right, okay.
just, I mean, you should all be participating, right?
Participatory
So, like,
democracy,
pick and
absolutely.
choose when you want to participate and how you want to participate and how you want this
Yeah.
information from this committee to be able to reach the community.
All right, so as far as picking a time and meeting, we're gonna assume that Sean's acrobatic conflict will not be an ongoing issue. Speak that into the record.
It's still being recorded.
It is. I know we've been a little bit all over the place with the dates and times, but let's, looking at, say, the second week of January.
I think that's a good thing. Yep.
Okay, that avoids the holiday week next week.
You're saying the second full week of January?
I was saying that week of the 12th.
Okay,
Week
yeah,
of
so
the
the
12th,
Right.
16th, yes.
It's probably good too, because our monthly fees Saturday is the 10th.
Mhm.
So
Right.
it's always good to have it after that.
Right
and we
after
can
that,
kind of
yep.
give an update if,
Okay.
who attended and things like that. Yeah.
Right on. Okay, so, and then Sophie, I think what are your conflicts? Or what is Conservation Committee that week as well? Do we know? I can't remember.
Concom is second and fourth Monday.
So that month, so you would have a Monday meeting that week.
Yes.
And so we want to avoid that day then.
Yep.
Are you okay with 2 meetings that week?
Oh, yeah, I can live with that. That's okay.
No, it's all right. I'm just gonna look more at the calendar just to see if there's any other obvious conflicts
yeah.
already.
I'm wide open. Thanks.
Yeah, I am too, as of now. And yeah, there's like basically community preservation committee that's on the Thursday, but that's upstairs, so pretty much wide open. Anyone have a preference for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday?
Just in full transparency, there may be a different city councilor sitting on that at that particular time, so
That's okay.
yeah, just, I'm not sure what
Right.
because it's gonna be a change in leadership and
Okay.
people expressing interest for committees that they want to sit on, et cetera. So I know I wasn't the only one who expressed interest in kind of being a part of this, so I want to be respectful of hotly contested.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, okay, well, we'll just have to pick a time. It'll work for you or for whoever.
Yes.
You can certainly come as a member of the public.
Mhm.
All right, so Sophie, what do people prefer, like sort of, again, this sort of like later evening, like after work time?
Yeah, this is, I think,
Like 6:30 good, or maybe 6 o'clock, okay, we move back up a little bit. Oh, well, 6 is, Sean has some issues, like where West Coast, like
Sometimes work stuff, yeah.
Okay, so if we stick to 6:30, that's good. So,
Yep.
you know, Wednesday, the 14th, is that,
Sure, works for me.
okay, let's do that. And then, if we have to adjust, we will, but I will. But
Okay, January 14th, 6:30 to roughly 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
And, all right. While we're on that subject, I know, like, is Sean technically still like the chair, like at least in name, or is there?
My knowledge, I
Okay.
can have a.
Yeah,
But I know he was looking
he was looking to step down.
Right, that was what I
chair,
remember from him.
and there hasn't been a stampede of interested people who want to become chair.
Right. All right, well, maybe again, with some turnover, maybe we have a new committee member next time, so maybe we'll put back on the agenda for next time. Sort of establishing if there's like maybe a chair and even a vice chair or something like that, so we've got that sort of squared away in terms of who's doing agendas and setting meetings times and running the meetings. Besides Sean, are we missing anybody else? I guess nobody else that's currently serving, right? It's 6 of us. And so
Well,
Because there's still the LD.
still the agricultural commission.
That is still kind of,
I can't make it with mine.
Right, so that's, assuming we're not gonna solve that issue anytime soon, pending the ordinance change.
Yeah, I know at least one person who's interested in joining also, so
Okay.
he said he was gonna try to come, but obviously he didn't come, but it is something that he's exploring and wanting to get that. So, but I do think with the ordinance change that would have, and I apologize for the confusion, I was
No.
misinformed about
not to worry.
what was supposed to happen, so so that's good that actually doesn't happen, so it could be relatively quick and then work with that.
All right, so let's review that, and then let's maybe put on the agenda again next time, like another discussion about who's gonna be the and with that, I think we're ready to adjourn. Do I have a motion?
Actually, could I interject
Sorry.
something that was, I don't know if I missed the window.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Talking about, I don't know how we get out of here. I realized we should maybe chat about a date for a winter summer event in January.
Oh, you did mention earlier that you wanted
Yes,
to
and
do
I
that,
should have
yes.
brought that up when we were still on the public outreach.
That's okay,
topic,
no, this is
but-
fine to plug it in now.
Yeah, not that we need to I think this will be a relatively easy lift because we have all of our planning materials and average materials from last year, which I think we could basically plug and play.
And we have a lot of
Blades. We have a lot of seeds. We have the flyers that we can just update. So I actually think even though maybe getting the ball rolling a little late on this, I think it will be pretty doable.
I think so too.
Okay.
Especially if we're shooting for like later in January, once the holiday stuff is done.
Is that kind of the ideal time, like January, February, or?
Yeah, anytime in there is honestly, we could be doing it now. It's
Right.
pretty flexible. Last year we did it at the flower shop on Cottage Street. I'm happy to approach them again to see if they'd like to host, or we could do it at the library annex. I don't have a strong preference. We could, just see what their respective availabilities are.
Right, was doing it with the flower shop, and that was like a little, maybe a little more limiting in terms of space that was available, and like there was a lot of interest, right? People had to be kind of turned away, / put on
Yes.
a waiting list.
Correct.
Yeah.
The advantage is that they were fine with us being really messy,
Right,
which the annex, like, not that I don't think it needs to be a super messy activity, but that's just something else to keep in mind, that they're not like as set up to do,
right,
but play.
right.
We could
This
also
happens.
slide tarps under the
Yeah,
tables.
totally. And I
Yes.
You know, for easy cleanup, because the dirt is
Really
gonna
just-
pretty much just stay
Yeah.
for the most part where the edge of the table is.
and I don't think it would need to be wet. Like, I think we can do
Yeah.
it dry and tell people to water when they get
Yes.
home. That would simplify things a lot.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm like totally happy to do the annex if that seems like a bigger space for something that we know is very popular.
I
What was the
wonder
next one?
if the buzz about it and how many people were interested was because of where it was being held or the event.
Did they help publicize it, the flower shop themselves, or?
Or
There's a lot of people
We
interested in
did
that.
a lot of outreach.
Yeah.
And had a good like long outreach timeline, which I think has been, I feel like I've learned the lesson that like giving it a couple of weeks to like actually get the word out is.
Yes,
really
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say try the annex and let's maximize in terms of like being able to accommodate anyone who wants to be part of it. We've got enough materials and enough people to do that.
Yeah.
And then, you know, in terms of date, if you know, we've set another meeting for mid-January, so if we need to start publicizing before that, we can do that potentially, but we need to know that now.
Right.
Or if we can push the date far enough back that the publicity can have it after the next meeting, then we can have that on the agenda and plan out the outreach for a February event or
Yeah.
something like that, if that makes sense.
Just in terms of narrowing in on timing for this group, are there any weekends in like late February, early March that are absolutely no? I see that Valentine's Day is a Saturday, for instance.
Well, you always have to worry about, I mean,
Could
from
be a
a standpoint, there's school vacation week.
Okay.
The school vacation week is
23rd.
the 16th to the 20th.
Okay. So do you think that would be good or bad?
Well, a lot of people go out of town, a lot of people with children or so, to use that opportunity to get somewhere warm. Some of them, not everybody. But the weekend before and after that may be a little bit
Yeah.
less interest. But
That's a good parameter.
I don't
But
see
then you're pushing
anything.
into that, the very end of February
Right.
potentially, or, February 7th, 8th weekend, which would be enough time to publicize for
Yeah.
our next meeting, maybe.
Yeah, I'm feeling like the two weekends, like the 24th, the 31st, or the 7th would
Uh-huh.
be really good.
Okay. Yeah, right. That 31st and the first weekend
Yeah.
would be another one. It's still a couple weeks after our next meeting, so.
Okay. Well,
Um,
I can get in touch with the annex and see what their availability looks like too.
I don't see any, I don't know my next semester
Right.
classes yet. I should know that soon. But weekends usually I don't, other than our Saturday fees committee thing, I don't usually have much on the weekend, so.
Right.
I'm pumped about doing another event.
Maybe
Like, I just feel like the more we just keep doing it, the more people are gonna be catching on that we're doing things, so.
Okay, great. Well, I will put that on the agenda for next meeting with like more of a fleshed out plan for what's ours.
Right. Then maybe add a target date or two.
Yeah.
Based on that. Thank you. Appreciate you doing that.
Yeah.
Pleasure.
Yeah, it's a great event. And then we can get another good response.
Yeah. Great.
All
Thank you.
right. Anybody have anything else that we have not already covered? All right, now I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn our meeting this evening.
Do I have a second?
Second that.
Moved and seconded, all in favor.
All right.
Meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.